Welcome, everybody. Today's topic is anger management. I want to start off with a story. So the story is from the 12th century AD. You must have heard of Genghis Khan. So Genghis Khan, as he was making his conquest from Mongolia to the west, and ultimately he was trying to conquer the entire earth. In one of his campaigns, he is in camp and he wants to go hunting. So he takes his troops with him and they all get on their horses. They ride out into the forest. And very interestingly, like everybody else in this team, they are carrying ammunition, they're carrying bows and arrows and so on. He doesn't carry any of that. All he has is he has his pet falcon on his arm. So he rides off into this wilderness with his pet falcon. And he's very strategic. While he knows that everybody else has these weapons, he has the most powerful weapon because a falcon, unlike any of the other weapons, has the ability to soar up into the sky and then from there look down and find the prey. And then that puts him in a very unique position. And so he goes out and they look around all day. And it's now late into the afternoon, into the evening, and they haven't found a single animal to hunt. And so he's very dejected. The entire team, entire troop returns back quite sad to the camp. And that does not make Genghis Khan at ease. So he's very frustrated, he's angry. And so he decides that he's just going to go out and ride into the wilderness to just let go, to kind of blow off the steam. So he rides and rides with his falcon on his arm. And then he reaches a point where he's really tired and he's really thirsty. So he stops. And as he stops, he's looking around for any sign of water because he wants to, quench his thirst. And he does not find anything except as he looks, he finds this one thin strand, a little trickle that's coming down between rocks. So then he takes out his silver cup from his saddle and goes to that little trickle and he fills his cup with the water. And just as he's about to put the cup to his mouth, the falcon flies and he comes and he pushes that cup away and drops it onto the ground. And that shocks Genghis Khan. And he wonders what happened. It must have been a mistake. Genghis Khan takes that cup up, he cleans it up, goes back to the little trickle of water, fills it again with water. And as he's just about to drink that thing, the falcon swoops down and he hits the cup and he smashes it onto the floor. And now at this point, Genghis Khan is really infuriated. And then this time he pulls out his sword and he fills his cup with water and he's just about to drink it. He's watching with one eye to see if the falcon is going to do this yet again. And when the falcon comes to swoop in, he takes his sword and cuts it across his chest and kills the falcon. So the falcon falls down. And by this time, he turns around to look at the stream, and the stream has run dry. So Genghis Khan then goes up that stream, so past those rocks to see where the source of the water might be and sees if there's a puddle of water that he can access from further upstream. And there he notices that in that little puddle of water, there is a poisonous snake. And the poisonous snake had died, and it was giving out its whatever, all of the fluids were being contaminated with its dead body. And so the falcon had seen that, and that makes Genghis Khan really sad. As he returns to camp, he asks his entourage to create a golden image of the falcon. And as they make the golden image of the falcon, he has two inscriptions, two statements on either of the wings. On one wing, it says, a friend, even when he does something that you don't agree with, still continues to be a friend. And on the other wing, he says, any action that is taken in rage leads to doom. So folks, we're here to talk about this idea of rage or anger management. So the first thing I want to say is that anger is in itself a signal. Anger does not mean the other person is wrong in some way, or there's something wrong with that person. all it is saying is that they are doing something somehow that does not align with my belief, my wants, or my plan right now. And so when something gets in the way, it triggers anger within you. So it's not really about them. It's a question that one needs to ask oneself. What is it that they have done, or what is it that I am feeling that my ego is hurt, my plans have been blocked, or something that I really want, I'm not able to get it? And so that brings me to the second point about anger, which is this feeling that someone else is responsible for your hurt. And this is something that is very, very common held belief, that I'm feeling hurt, so someone or something out there is responsible for having caused that hurt. If you think about it, a hurt feeling is caused because it's an emotional reaction to something. So an emotion is not physical, and hurt is something that happens to you in person. So it's a physical experience that you're feeling because of something physically, something has happened, some movement, something has hit you, and so on and so forth. But if you think about it, the sense of the thing that causes anger, that feeling is not physical. So therefore, ask yourself, what might it be connected to? A hurt is a sense of emotion that's arising, and emotions are not physical. They are a disturbance in our consciousness. And when something disturbs us in our consciousness, one feels sadness, one feels anger, or take it a step further, you could feel fear. And so ask yourself, who is responsible for my creation of this emotion of anger, sadness, or fear? No one else. So there's a saying that it is not what you say that makes me feel like the way I do. It is what I make of what you say or do that makes me feel like the way I do. So therefore, forgiveness, so any sort of compensation or any sort of realization that comes when you're feeling angry needs to be something that's directed to yourself. Forgiveness, compassion, whatever you call it, because I am responsible for what I'm feeling right now. So if I want to assuage the situation, if I want to calm the situation, if I want to cool it down, so really the question is, how do I turn that compassion? How do I turn that realization of what is it that I'm feeling that is being really caused by me? So the very important thing to realize that hurt feelings and emotions are something that I completely own. No one else is responsible for it. And when I'm trying to connect it with somebody else, and I say that I'm avoiding somebody because of a past encounter, I'm feeling bad, I don't want to look at somebody else because of what's happened before, a conversation, an interaction, whatever it is, there needs to be the realization it's not them, it's me that's the source of that feeling or that emotion. It's not easy. This is not easy because we learn at a very early age that someone else is responsible. It's easy to blame. There's one game that they say is the most popular game in the world. It's not cricket, it's not soccer, it's not football, it's not rugby. It's the blame game. So ask yourself, how much of what you're feeling and you have been blaming somebody else for is something that you have because of your own ego, because of your own attachment, because of your own insecurities. It has arisen from that. It's from your own weakness that you've interpreted something else, some other person's action, some other person's behavior, some other person's words, as something that is causing me hurt. Now, the next thing I want to say is something very important as we live in an age of social media. How many times, even in a single day, do you see an idea being shared? Now, there's a lot of science, there's a lot of psychology behind the idea that based on the number of people that believe in something, it's the number of times that will be put into action, regardless of how false that belief may be. So for example, if there is something that is happening out there that's triggering an emotion of rage, frustration within you, and then you go and you retweet it, respond to it, you reply to it, you share it, or you comment on it, what have you, what you're in fact doing is you are actually empowering that false message or the false idea or whatever it is. I mean, you may not realize it's false, but when something that you does not sit well with you, the best thing you can do is become silent. There is nothing more condemning to an idea than silence, a concept, a philosophy, whatever it is, a belief system. If we do not respond to it, if you do not take any action on it, it has a natural death that it is doomed to. So think about this. Every time I'm actually commenting on it, if I'm taking action on it, I'm doing the one thing that I don't want, which is I'm giving it power. I'm giving it wings for it to go reach out and spread and live. We're giving it life. Life is, to it, is attention. And when I give it attention, I am basically perpetrating exactly that which I don't want. So now let's talk a little bit about, okay, we've talked about the idea of, what causes anger, where does it get fueled from, what perpetrates it, what helps it to spread, what gives it wings. Now, let's talk a little bit about how does one find a resolution for something that you feel triggered by. So 3 simple steps. So think about it. Anything that is an emotion that is arising, first of all, requires the attention of awareness, right? So the first thing that you ask yourself is, what is it that is really bothering you? You're feeling this discomfort, you're feeling this emotion. Ask yourself, what exactly is it about that thing or about that person or about that activity or about that concept, whatever the case may be? What is it exactly about that that is bothering me? Sit with that, and with the attention, with your observation, you'll be able to peel off the superficial emotional stuff and see, what is it? And then ask yourself, what is really making me feel uncomfortable? What is it about the situation that's making me feel uncomfortable? So remember I said earlier, it is usually when you have a plan and you have a way, you have a particular vision, you have an idea, and something somehow is blocking that. That's when you see the eruption of anger. So ask yourself this question: what do you really want from the situation? Then the third question that you need to ask yourself is, if I get that which I want, what will I receive? What will emerge that is truly of value to me? Think about it. So anything, anyone, any idea, any goal that I want to achieve is just a physical thing. But that has some sort of an emotional component, that has some sort of a psychological benefit. It is associated with something that I value. I want something because I value something. So I assign certain values to that thing or that person or that particular path that I want to go down, that particular objective or that particular action. And therefore I pursue it and something gets in the way. Ask yourself, so if I do get whatever that thing that I'm feeling that I'm being denied, what is the value that is associated? That what is that thing that I will ultimately emotionally receive? What does my heart get from it that is truly of value? So I understand, for example, what is it that I really value then? And many a times by asking yourself these questions, you'll realize that that which is actually triggering me, that's what is actually enraging me, is not truly of value. That's not something that's important to me, that I might actually spend my energy, lose my cool, lose my mental ability to focus, to think clearly, causing a tumult in my hormones, and then ultimately causing me a sort of a shock. It's creating a feeling where I'm not able to operate. I'm being sabotaged. And who's sabotaging? I myself am sabotaging myself. So imagine being debilitated by someone else. You know how we would consider that to be such an offense. But here, I am the one creating that offense. So these are three simple steps in which you can look at any situation that is giving you the feeling of getting angry, and you can get a grip on the situation. With that said, now I would like to dive into a somatic exercise that will help us to get into this phase where you think about anything, think of any one thing that has caused you a great amount of anger recently. And apply this meditation that I'm about to walk you into, and you'll see how that loses its grip on you and you regain self-control. So before we dive into the meditation exercise, first of all, I want you all to do a little stretch here. So I want you to raise one arm straight up. And then I want you to twist to the opposite side, creating a nice stretch that you feel below your arm. So as you're breathing in, come up, raise your other arm. As you're breathing out, bend to the opposite side where your arm is raised. Imagine you're sitting between two panes of glass, and repeat this. And only movement that is happening is a sideways movement. No forward, no backwards, just sideways. Breathing in as you're coming up, and breathing out as you're making a nice stretch. One last time. Breathing in as you're coming up, breathing out as you're going as far as you can with both your shoulder, neck, and your arm. Okay, now with your eyes open or closed, however you choose, let's go into the heart space. Taking deep, comfortable breaths into the belly. Noticing the rise and the collapse of the abdomen, not the chest. Breathing in the fresh oxygen, giving your body what it needs. As you exhale, you're letting go of what the body does not need, the carbon dioxide. And with each passing breath, also let go of any tightness that the body does not need. Feel if there's any tightness in your abdomen, in your shoulders, in your neck. In your limbs, the arms and the legs. Notice if your jaw is unclenched and just hanging. And it's a good idea to let the tongue sit on the top of the palate, continuing and completing the meridian inside the body. And as I'm observing the breath, with each passing breath, my attention is moving inwards from the outside world. And just with this observation and deep breathing, I can feel the calming down of any emotions that have been fluttered, that have been disturbed before I sat down here. Particularly today, I want to pay attention to the emotion of anger. Now, if you're in this meditation, that means you identify with anger. Anger, as you may have experienced, can fill the entire landscape and project its contorted, distorted reality on people I'm with or events I'm witnessing. And then it begins to overwhelm me. I begin to lose my self control. It becomes at this time a bit hard to dissociate from it and see it objectively. And this perpetuates a vicious cycle of affliction by rekindling the anger. The more I lose control in a situation, the more that makes me angry. And sometimes, if this has been happening for the entire lifetime, we may even be addicted to the suffering. This is the suffering of discomfort that is caused by my anger. So I might begin to feel like it's normal to be uncomfortable with my emotions. And as you are sitting down here and observing these emotions and this trajectory of what triggers my emotions, you're able to dissociate from it and look at it objectively. And that brings up an age-old truth. That which is aware of anger cannot be angry. And you can see that anger is just an illusion. It's thoughts that I'm creating. It's not real. Anger doesn't cut like a knife, burn like a fire, or crush like a rock. It's nothing more than my emotions going out of control. You slowly begin to understand that I am not anger itself, in the same way that the clouds are not the sky. So, to deal with anger, we avoid letting our mind jump again and again to the trigger of the anger. Look at anger in its eye and keep your attention on it. If you stop adding fuel to the fire and just watch it, the fire will die. This is an easy way for us to regain our calm and self control. This does not mean that you do not feel any emotions at all. It only means that I do not want to be a slave to my emotions. Let the emotions arise, but also let them be freed from their afflictive components, distorting my reality, mental confusion, my nature of clinging, suffering from these emotions. This practice of resting in your pure awareness is precious when done time to time. This practice will help me to not identify with these erupting emotions and thereby be sabotaged by them. The more I remember who I truly am, the lesser is the chance of being fooled into believing that I'm an angry person or associate with any form of emotion. And with a little practice, this approach becomes very handy when you need it the most. And your calm demeanor becomes your natural way of being. Whenever anger arises, you will learn to recognize it right away. Just like when you know someone is a pickpocket, even when he is hidden in a crowd, you will be able to spot him right away and keep a care. Notice how you feel right now. Acknowledge this for yourself. This hour is a gift that you have chosen to give yourself. This is investing in your well-being. So be sure to acknowledge how this makes a difference compared to when you walked in here about 45 minutes ago. And then ask yourself this question: what do you value the most in life? Just whenever you're ready, at your own pace, open eyes, if you had them closed. And let's come back to this circle. And I want you to share in the chat window, what is it that you value the most? And as I'm beginning to get responses, I also want you to please put your questions in the Q&A, this little bubble there at the bottom. You'll see an icon, and I want you to please go ahead and ask questions that you might have related to this topic. So I'm getting responses like mental freedom. Excellent. I'll give you guys a second to put in your answers. Okay, I'm seeing responses like health is important, purpose is important. Very good. Yeah, I'm getting more health. Fabulous. Okay, as they're coming in. So I have a question here. In times of rage, how does one even get into a state of inner reflection? Isn't that contradictory? Yeah, good question, Diksha. So in time of rage, how does one get into the inner state of reflection? So I talked about it briefly in my talk. So it is your belief system that you are the object of your sabotage. So if that emotion is what is causing you to be sabotaged, where you completely lost control, where you have the opportunity to reflect on anything, whether it's inner reflection, outer reflection, something else in between, it is the lack of mobility to put my attention to what I want that is the thief there, right? So it's like You can call it like a drug. You can call it some sort of a confinement. Somebody mentioned freedom. This is the exact opposite. It's some sort of a jail sentence where you don't have any freedom to do what you want, right? Now, from your question, it is obvious, and it's not surprising that, because a lot of people feel the same way, that you believe that you need to be a complete slave to that emotion at that point in time, and nothing else sensible can ever happen. You see, that belief system is what is keeping you trapped. That belief system is what you've been reinforcing every time you get into the situation, to say that I do not have the ability to free myself out of that cage that I have built around myself due to that emotion that I'm self-creating. You see, all of that whole thing from beginning to end is something that I am perpetrating. I am the cause of it, and I'm suffering because of it. And so the practice that we just went through helps you to change that, what you call your natural state. That's a very important thing, because the more you begin to practice this idea of being an observer, being free, being calm, being in a natural state of equanimity, then you will realize that anything that throws you off balance is not natural. That was only unnatural. And if I let it be, just even by, like I said, a few breaths and observation, if you put the gift of your attention, it comes up in your awareness, and that awareness helps you to transform. Realization is the basis of transformation. Remember, that's a very important thing. And this is just, we're talking about one emotion today, but this is true for all emotions. So good question. So let's see, you got a couple more here. How does one account for getting things done via anger, like the habit of yelling to get things done at work? Yes. So there are temporary solutions. And, I'll tell you, this is something that even I struggle with. It took me a long time. I used to run this big event, some of you may be aware of, called Peace in the Park. It's a festival that we ran every year around the International Day of Peace at Golden Gate, at the beautiful, beautiful venue in the middle of the Golden Gate Park. And it was a team effort. There was about 270 volunteers, a core group of 30 people. And it took us about 6 months of planning for that one-day festival, believe it or not. And there are so many moving parts, so many inputs, so many personalities, so much of goodwill, but also some people who have certain intentions and motives, what have you, right? There's all kinds of things in the mix. And for me, that sifting through all of that, just that whole effort ultimately was an endeavor for me to understand myself. That's the biggest takeaway. It's not about the event that I put on. It's not about the great success that we had, but it's about how I can be manipulated by how I allow to take in different signals that are coming from the outside. So that was one of my biggest lessons. So yelling can probably fool some people sometimes, but it will not work with all the people all the time. You might have heard this famous slogan. So fooling people works on some people sometimes, but not on all people all the time. Yelling is like that. It's like fooling yourself and thereby perhaps fooling the other person to believe that you are in control, where exactly the opposite is true, that you have absolutely no control. And it is actually that yelling is a cry out of desperation that you're begging for some sort of sympathy from the other person to say, please help me to regain my control. And if the other person is compassionate and kind, may allow you to feel that sense of that little glimmer of control that you've been seeking for. But otherwise, there will be people who will, it's only, again, sometimes if there's even the same person will not, anything that comes from a place of weakness is something that will ultimately be taken advantage of. And it's not a solution to anything. It may work sometimes, but it will not, definitely, it's not something that you can, see, that's one of the things, unfortunately, the more we repeat anything, like I said in my meditation, it becomes like muscle memory. You begin to kind of fall back on it as if that is going to be your weapon of choice when you're going to be confronted with the situation. And unfortunately, that's not going to work. And so you're going to use it and you're going to basically damage relationships. You're going to damage your health. It's, like they say, getting angry is like holding poison or drinking poison, expecting the other person to die, right? Think about the toxicity of the emotions of anger, what it does to your own hormones and to your own organs. And regardless of whether you're achieving their objective or not, look at the damage that is permanently done to me. So that's my takeaway from that. So, okay, so let's see. What do you do when someone else who is an angry person, while you try to keep yourself in sanity and don't want to lose in when responding to that? Yeah, so this is a question, I think, ultimately that you have to ask yourself. How much abuse are you willing to put up with? So think about it. I mean, anger is a form of abuse. If somebody is using that again as a weapon of choice because you have shown your compassion and your kindness the last time to be able to yield, to give them the sense of they're regaining the control. So now you are responsible for feeding that fire. So you got to ask yourself, how much further, how much longer do I want to keep doing that? And what is the result of that? Is that actually helping us actually build a better relationship? Are we having better trust? Are we having more respect with each other? If the answer is not, which is most likely the case, then I need to pull the plug and say, I'm not going to feed that fuel. It doesn't matter what you think I did the last time, how it made you feel like you were able to use that to get what you want. I'm not going to love that. So when I say that I'm dealing with an angry person, you have to really make a clear choice whether that's a person that you want to spend any more time with. And I'm talking about pretty big decisions in your life, and you're going to ask yourself, how much abuse are you willing to put up? And then that will be your source of healing. Because remember, folks, toxic relationship can have a long-lasting health impediment. And again, if I'm in a relationship where there is some toxicity, you have to be very honest and ask yourself, what is the subtle attachment that I have? What is it that I'm seeking? What is the desire that is keeping me trapped in this abusive or dysfunctional relationship? Okay, so I am responsible for allowing that to continue. So that's a very big question you would ask yourself. Okay, next question. Jay, could you briefly repeat the 3 steps that you do when we notice anger arising? Okay, great question. So the 3 steps that you do, ask yourself this thing. What is it that is bothering you? So you see the other person's behavior, that thing, that situation, the weather, whatever it is. Okay, there's something out there that's bothering you. Ask yourself, what is it that is actually the trigger of that thing, that physical? So there's something physical, but like I said, this is an emotion. So there is something that is non-physical that is translating, and I'm construing that as something that is being my quote unquote trigger. So what is that trigger? Okay. Then you ask yourself from the situation, what is it that you want? Okay. Then comes the third aspect. If you get that what you want, again, it could be a physical thing, person, place, position, etc., etc. What is it that is of value to you that you will get from having received this physical thing? Okay, great question. Okay, so other questions, comments? I'm seeing things like, what do you really want? What do you really value? My granddaughter. So again, let me just be clear. This is a granddaughter, something physical. The granddaughter is not ultimately something that is valuable to you. So it's the relationship. So you see, you peel the onion and you'll see in this thing that you seem to be so fixated about getting your granddaughter, what is it that you value that is you objectifying as your granddaughter, right? So this probably, I'm going to guess, and I could be wrong, but it's probably you're seeking love, you're seeking attention, you're seeking respect. It could be one of those things or more of those things. And then thereby let me see how can I actually give myself that which I'm attaching something else to be the source of my fulfillment. Right? Any sort of external dependency is a form of addiction, is something that is going to subject you to manipulation. Remember, folks, the moment I give my control to something else, the moment I give power to something else to be the source of my being complete, my being fulfilled, my being content, that will take advantage of that. Okay, so please, I know this is all sounds very harsh, but there is a lot of depth to this if one can only sit with it and realize it. Okay. I guess there's a comment here. The 3 questions can be used in many situations. Thank you. Yes, exactly. So like I said, this entire talk that I did for the last 55 minutes here, you can apply that to any emotion. Today, we happen to be focusing on the emotion of anger, but you take this to anything, any situation in life where you're losing your sense of center, you're losing your sense of balance, you're losing your sense of calm, and you apply the 3 steps question. And actually, by the way, that 3-step question can be even applied to relationships and say, when I'm feeling a sense of conflict, ask yourself, what's that is triggering? What is that I want? And what is it of value that I'll receive if I get what is that I want? Because you see, a lot of times we associate something and we get it and we're still not happy. So is that worth for me to spend all this energy and put the resources at stake? In this case, the resource may be a relationship. And then when you peel back the layers, you might see that which I'm so fixated, I've been fighting for all along, really does not do that much for me. And perhaps I can let go of the leash and thereby not be dragged around. Great. Okay. Any other questions or comments that you want me to talk about? So yeah, by the way, one of the questions I always get is, what is the backdrop? So this, if you haven't already recognized, this is the famous Masai Mara in Kenya. And so I was there with family for a safari 3 years ago, I think. And there's this beautiful sunset, and had these wildebeest, this wildlife, in this case the giraffes, they might go kind of migrating, and it's just a surreal, beautiful experiencing, watching nature do its rhythm, being in the flow of that. And it's so interesting. So we were out on the safari for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. I can't remember exactly, but this thing is so captivating, being in the midst of wildlife, that we would come back to our resort and we would sleep. And our dreams would be of elephants and rhinos and cheetahs and giraffes and so on. So it was quite an experience. I wanted to share that with you guys, and by putting it as a backdrop here. Thank you. So there's a comment, sunset is gorgeous and peaceful. And that's the thing. So it's all of this. So when you think about something is gorgeous and peaceful, you feel that only because it resonates to something within you. So anytime you find something out there, a person's qualities, a particular scenery, a particular action that somebody else does, if it resonates with you, you got to recognize resonance means you're vibrating. There's something about that that's vibrating with you at that frequency. That means I have that within me. So a beautiful sunset like the one that we're seeing here is resonant with the beauty of my own peaceful soul. So thank you for that. Okay, folks, which brings us to the end of our time. I appreciate all the questions, the great conversation. I will see you all a week from now. But again, please send me your suggestions for topics. You all are either in either on my WhatsApp group, or you're also on the private Facebook group, one way or the other, or even through email. Some of you are from my mailing list. Go ahead and send me a message and tell me if there is a topic that is of interest to you, and I'll be sure to put that on the roster and we'll talk about it. So until I see you again next week, be well, be safe, and thank you very much.